Alright, welcome to today's episode of People and Politics. And today we'll be talking about Kudirat Abiola, the woman who refused to be silenced. Watch this video to the very end so that you can pick one or two things. Thank you. In Nigeria's history, there are names that become symbols, not because they wanted power, but because history pushed them into the fire. One of those names was Kudirat Abiola, a wife, a mother, a businesswoman, and eventually a dangerous woman to a military dictatorship. When her husband, Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, known to Nigerians as MKO, won what is still considered Nigeria's freest election in 1993, many believed democracy had finally arrived. But the military had other plans. The election was annulled, the winner was arrested, and while powerful man went silent, one woman stepped forward. Not because she was trained for politics, not because she wanted fame, but because the man she loved was locked away, and because she believed Nigeria had been robbed. This is the story of Kudirat Abiola, the woman who stood when others hid, and paid for it with her life. Kudirat Olayinka Adeyemi was born in 1951 in Zaria, northern Nigeria. She did not come from elite political royalty. She was known as disciplined, hardworking, deeply religious, and fiercely loyal to family. She married MKO Abiola at a young age and became one of the most trusted wives, and that matters. Because MKO Abiola was not an ordinary man. He was one of the richest men in Nigeria. A business giant, a philanthropist, a politician loved by millions. But behind the public image was a private reality. Kudirat was one of the people who truly understood him. People close to the family often described her as protective, intelligent, and emotionally strong, while many only saw MKO as the public figure. Kudirat saw the exhausted man behind the smile, and she stayed beside him through everything. Then came July 12, 1993, the election that changed Nigeria forever. MKO won the presidential election, and not just barely. He won across ethnic and religious lines in a way Nigeria had never seen before. Muslims voted for him, Christians voted for him, North and South supported him. For many Nigerians, it feels like hope had finally defeated division. Then, the military government under General Ibrahim Babangida annulled the election.
It is true that the presidential election was generally seen to be free, fair, and peaceful. However, there was in fact a huge array of electoral malpractices virtually.
Nigeria exploded in anger. Protests filled the streets. Students marched. Workers protested. Activists demanded justice. Then, in 1994, MKO Abiola declared himself the rightful president of Nigeria. That decision sealed his fate. He was arrested and detained by the military regime of General Sani Abacha. At first, many believed powerful politicians would fight for him, but fear spread quickly. People disappeared, journalists were arrested, activists were haunted, and slowly, many people abandoned MKO, but not Kudirat. Never Kudirat. This was the moment Kudirat transformed. She stopped being seen merely as MKO's wife. She became the public face of resistance. While her husband sat in detention, she traveled, she organized protests, she funded pro-democracy movements, she spoke to journalists, she encouraged market women, students, and labor unions to continue resisting. She became close with members of NADECO, the National Democratic Coalition, one of the strongest anti-military groups in Nigeria. Among those connected to the movement were people like Gani Fawehinmi, Wole Soyinka, Beko Ransome-Kuti, Abraham Adesanya, Frank Okori. Many activists fled the country. She went underground. Some were jailed, but Kudirat stayed visible. That visibility made her powerful and dangerous because every interview she gave embarrassed the military government intentionally. She spoke not only as a politician wife, but as a woman whose husband was being psychologically destroyed in prison. People began to admire her courage, especially ordinary Nigerians. Market women saw themselves in her. Mothers saw themselves in her. She became political, emotional proof that the June 12 struggle was not dead. International attention also grew. Foreign governments and human rights organizations began criticizing the Nigerian military regime more aggressively. Even underground pro-democracy radio broadcasts outside Nigeria amplified her voice. At one point, Radio Democracy, operated from Norway, became one of the loudest anti-military voices connected to the democracy struggle. After her death, it would later be renamed Radio Kudirat. That alone tells you how important she became. But resistance movements are really clean. Inside the struggle were fear, suspicion, and betrayal. The military government infiltrated activist network. Phones were monitored, meetings were watched. People close to activists were bribed or intimidated. One of the most controversial names connected later to the case was Lateef Shofolahan, a close associate who was inside the car with Kudirat on the day she was killed. Years later, allegations and court battles would surround whether insiders leaked information about her movement. To this day, many Nigerians believe Kudirat was betrayed by people close to her circle. And perhaps the saddest part is this: she knew she was in danger. Friends reportedly warned her repeatedly, but she refused to disappear because she believed that if she became silent, the military had already won. June 4, 1996. In Lagos, Kudirat Abiola entered a vehicle, a white Mercedes Benz, that morning with her driver and her assistant. She was reportedly heading for an appointment connected to the Canadian High Commission. As the vehicle slowed near Oregun in Ikeja, cars suddenly blocked the road. Gunmen emerged, armed, organized, professional. Witnesses said attackers fired directly into the car at close range. Bullets shattered the windows. Her driver was hit. Then a bullet struck Kudirat in the forehead. Chaos erupted. Blood filled the car. She was rushed to Eko Hospital. Doctors tried to save her, but it was too late. Nigeria was horrified. Many instantly believed the assassination had political backing. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, openly suggested government involvement. They suspected that the government was involved, and the military government's response only deepened suspicion because instead of protecting activists, authorities began arresting members of the Abiola family and opposition figures. Years later, under Nigeria's civilian government, investigation and testimony linked members of the General Sani Abacha security network to the assassination. Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, Abacha's chief security officer, became one of the most controversial figures associated with the case. Trials dragged on for years. Convictions came, then appeals overturned some judgments. Even today, many Nigerians believe the full truth was never completely revealed. But in the minds of millions, Kudirat Abiola was assassinated because she refused to stop fighting. Ironically, her death made her more powerful than ever. The military could kill her body, but not the movement. Her assassination intensified international pressure against the Abacha regime. The June 12 struggle became impossible to ignore globally. And 2 years later, in 1998, General Sani Abacha suddenly died. Only weeks later, MKO Abiola also died in detention under mysterious circumstances during negotiation for his release. Nigeria eventually returned to civilian rule in 1999, but democracy in Nigeria carries the fingerprints of people who paid for it with blood, and Kudirat Abiola was one of them. Today, many young Nigerians know the name June 12, but not all of them know the woman who kept that dream alive when fear consumed the nation. Kudirat Abiola was not perfect. She was human. She was afraid sometimes. She cried. She worried. She lost friends. She faced betrayal. But she continued anyway. And maybe that is what courage truly means. Not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else matters more. In the end, Kudirat Abiola became more than a politician's wife. She became a symbol, a reminder that sometimes history moves forward because one person refuses to kneel. The struggle for democracy in Nigeria was written not only by politicians, but by women who refused to stay silent.
It will continue off and on until the military release the result of the June 12 election and put the democratically elected president, who is myself, in charge of affairs. I won't go to war. I won't encourage my supporters to go to war. I will fight for peace, and we will get peace. But you see, we do not want the peace of a graveyard, a peace whereby somebody continues to ride on the rest of us with a gun. We will get peace, but we'll get peace with decency and integrity and honesty and probity and democracy.
Thank you so much for watching this video to the very end. Do not forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. And until the next video, thank you. Bye.